He is in the details. Today, I wanted to talk about God and how intentional, specific, strategic He is, and how He works and how He weaves together His plans, His purposes. And honestly, that's actually one of my favorite qualities about God is His sovereignty and His intentionality and how specific He is and how detail oriented He is. It's incredible when you read about it and when you see it within your own life. But yeah, and I think this quality is something that should bring the children of God comfort, knowing that we serve a God who is so intimately involved in our lives, so intimately involved that He knows the number of hairs on your head. We serve a God who doesn't just stand by the side. No, He is so active in weaving together everything for His purpose, for His grand plan, for our good and for His glory, so that we can see how good He is. It blows my mind, and again, it brings me so much comfort, and it should bring you comfort to know that God is very active in how He works in your life and how He has a purpose for you and how all of the details are working together for this plan that He has, that He understands and that you'll understand one day. But yeah, this was inspired when I was reading, or this insight, this understanding came alive to me whilst I was reading the book of Ruth. And Ruth is famous for the story of Ruth and Boaz, which every girl knows about. It's like, where is my Boaz, Lord? Where is my Boaz? I'd never actually read the book of Ruth until then. And I remember I was praying, I was like, God, I want to read something in the Bible that really highlights your sovereignty. Like, I want to see how you work, how you move. And yeah, the book of Ruth came up. But the beauty of the story of the book of Ruth is you see so many purposes through just a uniting of two people. You have the restoration of Ruth and how, she was a widow. She lost her husband, and God brought her a new husband who protected her, took care of her. And yeah, we see the restoration of Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, who also lost her sons and her own husband. And she went through a lot of grief and she was sad. She thought God was against her, didn't favor her because she'd lost a lot of things. We see the restoration of a legacy that would have been lost as a result of Ruth losing her husband. And yeah, God was able to bring that back. And we see how she was able to gain the land, etc. But the most important plan and the biggest one is we see how the joining and the uniting of Ruth and Boaz is linked to Christ's coming, because through the birth of their son, we get Jesse, then we get David, and obviously Jesus comes through the lineage of David. So that's basically the Bible in a nutshell. It is the beginning to the end of the coming of Christ, and obviously now, post the Bible, we live in the world where Christ is still coming. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, that is the ultimate story that God used, bringing Ruth and Boaz together to not only restore Ruth and Naomi and obviously bring joy to Boaz, but for His ultimate grand plan, Jesus Christ coming. And yeah, it's so incredible to see how God used something so not small, but just one thing to bring about like 10,000 purposes. And it really just goes to show how detail oriented God is. Everything that He does, how He moves, has a purpose. And we may not understand it, but we can trust and know that He is working for things that we cannot see right now. God, through this story, we see that God doesn't just think about the right now. Ruth probably saw like, I lost my husband. Naomi saw that I lost my sons and my husband, and now we have to go back to Moab and things like that. But what they didn't see is God had already planted Boaz there and was going to bring them together and restore the legacy, and through that would come a son who would then be led to Jesus, who would come years later. Like, that's incredible. God, when He's making these plans, is not just thinking about the now. Whereas we human beings, we're limited in our understanding. We don't see the way God sees. I'll use an example. Let's say you applied to a job and you got rejected you got rejected from that job, or that job rejected you. Sorry, my English is a bit all over the place. We only see the now, we only see the rejection, but we don't see how God is going to lead you to a different place, and how that place is going to lead to one thing and then the next thing. Like, God's plans have like little knock-on effects, kind of, because he's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, he's omniscient, he's all-knowing, he sees, he's already in the future. We can only see the now. He's already in the future, he's already 10 steps ahead, and his plans, when he does these things, he's not just thinking of the now, he's thinking of the 10 years, the 20 years, the 30 years. He's thinking of how he's going to weave this thing to produce that thing, and that thing's going to produce that thing, and then that thing's going to lead to that thing, and that thing's going to lead to that thing. Like, he thinks of everything, and that is such a comforting thing to know, because we have security in God, knowing that when he does these things, when he creates his plans, when he puts things together, it's not from a careless place. It's from somebody who's so strategic. We can trust the wisdom of God. And it's hard because we're humans. When things don't go right, we don't see things, we don't understand. But reading these stories helps you to see, like, God, you're so incredible, you're so intentional. You don't just do things for nothing. Things have a purpose. This thing leads to one thing, and that leads to the next thing. And he's just so intentional. And the beauty is, though you may not see it now, one day you will understand, like that verse in John 13 verse 7. Though you may not understand now, you will get it one day. But we just have to trust that God cares. He's intentional. He knows what he's doing. And yeah, like, I just pray that as messy and chaotic as this audio is, it would just bring comfort to anybody who's in a season of uncertainty. It doesn't understand God's plan. Like, God, for the children of God, those who put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ, like, God has a plan for you. God has a plan for your life. He promises to complete the work that he started in you, and you can trust that God is weaving everything together for good and bad things, for your good and for his glory. He's in control. He sees tomorrow, he sees next week, he sees next year. He knows what he's doing. You can trust him, and you will see the power and the beauty of his mighty hands, and how he's able to move things around, and this happens for this reason, and it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. But yeah, I just wanted to share this very, very quick and chaotic encouragement to remind you that you serve a God who is in the details.